Today, we're diving into a fascinating manual known as the GSA protocol. It lays out a highly unconventional method for dealing with debt. Okay, so right off the bat, I have to be super clear about something. The ideas we're about to walk through come from a pretty unique perspective, and they are absolutely not recognized by mainstream legal or financial institutions. Trying these things out can have serious consequences. Our goal here is simply to understand the internal logic of this manual and the process it calls monetary construction. This quote, wow, it pretty much sums up the entire philosophy behind this manual. It's arguing that our financial system isn't some fair and open market. Instead, it's a complex administrative maze designed, from this point of view, to trap every single person in the role of a debtor by default. And that leads to this huge, kind of mind-bending question at the very core of this whole protocol. It asks you to completely flip your understanding of debt on its head, to stop seeing it as a permanent, unchangeable fact, and start seeing it as just another administrative contract. And like any contract, it can be modified. Right, so you're probably asking, how on earth is that supposed to work? Well, according to this manual, it all starts with one foundational premise, the idea that we're all living in two completely different competing financial systems at the exact same time. And what's so interesting here is how it splits reality in two. On one hand, you got what it calls the 1787 Republic, this private world of real, tangible things, like hard assets and your actual labor. But on the other hand, there's the 1913 banking cartel, a public shadow system based entirely on debt, where, the manual claims, almost everyone is unknowingly operating under a constant state of emergency. So according to the protocol, you can't just jump in and start using these tools. Nope. The very first thing you have to do is correct your legal status. Phase 1 is all about using paperwork to reconfigure your identity, to formally step out of that public debt system and into the private one. And to do that, you have to get your head around this concept they call the Nom de Guerre. The manual argues that when you see your name written in all capital letters, on a bill or a government document, that's not actually you. It's a separate fictional entity, a kind of legal decoy created by the state for one purpose: to hold public debt. The manual lays out this 3-step game plan to make that shift. First step, you formally declare yourself a non-combatant in this ongoing public debt system. Next, you administratively change your status away from the standard U.S. citizen classification. And finally, and this is a big one, you file a copyright on your all-caps name, essentially turning it from a public liability into your own private property. Okay, so once you've supposedly corrected your status, you move on to phase 2. And this is where you start architecting your own private financial infrastructure. According to the manual, this is where you quite literally become your own banker. And how do you do that? By setting up what the manual calls a 3-part banking engine, using 3 different employer identification numbers, or EINs. You get one for yourself, the living person, who is the owner. You set up a second one for a trust, which acts as your private vault. And the third EIN is for your Nom de Guerre, which now becomes your staff, handling all the public side transactions for you. All right, so you've corrected your status, you've built your private bank. Now we get to the real heart of this strategy, the GSA form toolkit. This is where the manual says you get the specific federal forms that can be used to take control of contracts. They call this whole process monetary construction. It's a pretty wild idea. It's the art of taking these official government documents and, repurposing them to take apart and then rebuild financial agreements. It treats everything from a car loan to a phone bill as just another contract that's open to modification. And here they are, these supposed power tools of the system. You've got the standard Form 30, which is presented as the master key, the tool to arrest or change any contract. Then there's the SF1414, which is used to break the assumption that you're the one liable for the debt. And these other two, the 1416 and 1418, those are for reclaiming assets and ordering debts to be settled on the public side. But look, it's not enough to just have the tools, right? You have to know how to use them. And that's what the final phases are all about. A super strict protocol for actually executing these orders and making sure they're enforced. Because according to this text, how you deliver these documents is just as important as what's in them. And this number, $23, it's highlighted for a very specific reason. The manual is absolutely insistent that you have to use this $23 blue registered mail. Why?
because the claim is that it's not just a delivery service. It's a jurisdictional maneuver that supposedly puts your filing into a higher-level administrative system that contractors are forced to recognize.
Yeah, and it gets even deeper. That 13-digit tracking number you get from the post office, that becomes what they call your contract ID. The claim here is that in the commercial world, this ID is seen as a more powerful identifier than even a social security number, and it signals that a serious administrative action is underway. Okay, so what if a company just throws it in the trash and ignores you? Well, the manual has a plan for that too. You escalate. You're told to report them to the Contractor Investigative Division or the Treasury Inspector General. The asserted leverage here is the threat of an investigation into contract fraud, and the final proof, the smoking gun that it all worked, demanding and receiving an official IRS Form 1099-C, which is a cancellation of debt form. So when you boil it all down, you get to the manual's final big idea. The entire system is built on this one core belief, that a high-level finance isn't really about money. It's about administration. It's about paperwork. And the argument goes, if the whole system is built on forms and contracts, then whoever masters those forms has the power to change the outcome. Which leaves us with the same provocative question this whole manual is really built around. Is the debt you're carrying an absolute, immovable reality that you just have to accept? Or, as this protocol suggests, is it merely an administrative agreement? Just sitting there, waiting for someone with the right paperwork to come along and issue a change order.